Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next session of AAC in the Cloud. We're excited to have you here. Today, our presentation will be by Christina Royster, Jill DeBronstein, and Alma Partida. They will be talking about diverse and inclusive implementation of AAC, and we'll turn things over to them.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Just give me one moment. Okay, so hopefully it's loading up. There we go. So thank you and welcome to our presentation. We are Diverse AAC and we'll introduce ourselves in just a second. But again, the title of our presentation is Diverse and Inclusive Implementation of AAC. So just a little bit about us. So we started last spring and it kind of started as kind of a project under Dr. Carol Zangari, who wanted to kind of research more about different issues related to diversity in the AAC field. And it was just kind of like a talk, honestly, just to try to collaborate with others to try to figure out what some of the issues that people are noticing, the issues that they're having, either if they are AAC users or if they are clinicians working with AAC users. And then from there, we were like, oh, well, maybe we can present at ATIA together. Alma reached out to the two of us, and since then, we've just stayed in touch and have done more presentations, but I don't think we ever plan to kind of continue on down this road, but we're really excited that it's something that seems to be a topic that people are really, excited about. So we're glad to still keep talking about it, even though we weren't planning to. But we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Christina Royster. I am an SLP in the Maryland and the Washington, DC area. I'm licensed in both Maryland and DC. I work in the public schools as an AAC or AT consultant. And then I also have a private practice, Play on Words Therapy, where I do mostly home-based services, working with many individuals who are emerging communicators and have a variety of different communication impairments. But yeah, I really enjoy kind of working in both of those settings. And then I'll pass it over to Alma.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alma. I'm a bilingual speech pathologist in Northern California. I graduated from San Jose State, where I got a grant for AAC, and I was trained on assessment and therapy for AAC users. During my research methods class, I did a deep dive into the research literature about multilingualism and AAC. So those are my two specialties, are AAC and bilingualism. I currently run the Instagram account called AAC for You and Me, and I post about access and resources for AAC users, regardless of their heritage language use, their method of funding or diagnosis. I do believe that AAC should be available to everyone. And I'll pass it on to Jill.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jill DeBronstein, and I'm out here in Southern California. Been practicing for over 20 years out here in the non-public schools, and also have a private practice, JDB Speech and Language Services. Have specialized actually in literacy for the past 15 years. And then that led me to emergent literacy. And AAC has been a huge passion of mine for the past several years. And I'm very happy to team up with both Alma and Christina and be able to provide you guys with some information about how to diversify all of your AAC materials and applications. So let's get started. So we don't have any financial relationships to disclose. However, as SLPs that are part of ASHA, we have been provided with subscription and/or codes or access to some AAC applications and software, and those are listed there. So our talking points for today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by talking about the importance of diverse representation within AAC systems. We're going to talk about light tech options and what those look like, where you can find that information. Then we're going to talk about strategies and solutions on how to individualize high-tech devices and materials. And then we're going to finish by talking about our hope for the future and what's coming up in the future of AAC applications. So our mission here, Christina talked a little bit about where and kind of how it started, but our mission is to provide parents and educators that support AAC users with the most current information and resources that are available, and it's constantly changing, so it's really difficult to find that information. So our hope is that we can provide you those updates and continuously provide you with that information to ensure that all AAC users are represented within their talker, and they can autonomously communicate what they want, when they want, and how they want. As for myself, and more specifically as a white SLP, we make up almost 92% of all speech language pathologists currently practicing in the field. We hope that that number decreases with more SLPs joining us that are of color, so that's great. But there's many ways to become an ally as it relates to our therapy practice, but we need to ensure that we're upholding our ethical responsibility to for all of the people that we serve, in no matter what we do. And so we understand that it's tough to find that information about the AAC systems and the updates. So that's really our hope, is to provide you with that so it makes your life a little bit easier as it relates to your AAC practice.
All right, so here's just a quick look into the different types of AAC. I'm sure you may have seen something similar before. So aided communication is one that often SLPs think of when they think of AAC. I know that very often people think of light tech in the form of like PECs or like a photo board when they think of AAC. However, AAC can rely on, use other methods that don't require any additional tools. And it can rely on the user's own body. For example, an unaided method would be like using body language, gestures, or American Sign Language. So this would be, and then back to aided AAC, this would be a type that uses like a physical aid to help convey a message. So, and then aided AAC can be broken up even further into light tech, which sometimes that is like printed or drawn, versus high tech, which is in the form of like an iPad or a speech generating device, usually something that requires electricity to charge.
Sorry, couldn't get unmuted for a second. And I also just wanted to add that I know many of you all have probably heard of low tech, and we are using light tech. We're actually trying to use light tech more often instead of low tech, just because actually at one of my presentations that I was doing a while back, I was using low tech a lot, and that's what I was, always familiar with using. But someone suggested in the chat feature of my presentation that maybe to try to start using light tech, just because the connotation can be with low, that it's just not as good or subpar as high tech can be. So just as we're trying as much as we can, we still sometimes slip up, but as much as we can, we're trying to use light tech as opposed to low tech. So going into looking at some of the AAC systems that are available currently, it can be really hard to create a personal likeness or to create something that's personalized to the AAC user in terms of different features like voice, dialect, appearance. It takes a lot of time and also just knowledge of programming of AAC systems. And so we do hope that this changes in the future and that it doesn't take as much extensive programming and time to do that. But we just wanted to show kind of an example of different systems and different, applications and softwares that are available right now. And we just chose a symbol for I, which is obviously going to be representing the user most of the time because they're talking about themselves. And we just wanted to show an example of some of the things that are offered currently. A lot of them do not provide a way to really customize the option. Some of them do, and they are starting to make those updates, which we're going to talk about later on today. But as you can see, a lot of them are very generic symbols. This is what the default that the systems come in. So hopefully in the future, and with some of these other workarounds that we're going to show you, they won't always look so standard moving forward. And so we also just wanted to highlight the fact that it's just a matter of respect as professionals, and kind of what Jill was talking about a few minutes ago, that it's our job to make sure that the systems, as SLPs, to make sure the systems that our clients, students, and the individuals that we're working with, making sure that that system represents them. The National Joint Committee for Communication Needs in Persons with Severe Disabilities states that all people have the right to clear, meaningful, and culturally and linguistically appropriate communications. And with that, that definitely includes the AAC system. So it's right there in our ethics code, and it's part of what we need to be doing as speech pathologists. So many of you all are familiar with the Communication Bill of Rights. This is just one kind of version of it that was also made from the NJC that I just quoted from before. We just wanted to highlight 3 of the different areas that we thought that were most kind of pertinent to what we're talking about today. But every person, regardless of their communication method or system or means, should be given the right to be offered choices. They should have the right to learn about themselves. They should be communicated with in a dignified manner, which is so important. And kind of what Dr. Chung earlier this morning was talking about with us in the keynote speech, that doesn't always happen, especially with our AAC users. And we think that part of that is being able for it to represent themselves, to not only give that confidence, but also, that it allows that person to really fully express themselves to a wider extent. So yeah, we just wanted to highlight these because we think that they're really pertinent to what we're talking about today.
Okay, so let's start by, many of you might already know this, but let's start by kind of debunking a common myth that, that we often hear from our clients' parents or caregivers, that if we start with AAC, that they won't use their verbal or their mouth words. But that actually is not the case. And so there is no specific target age that identifies like when a child would specifically benefit from AAC. It's early, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Ballinger actually found that in his research that the use of AAC can actually improve verbal or use of mouth words, even without any speech therapy. So don't wait. There's no proven harm in using AAC very early in life. And then some early forms that Alma already talked about, many parents use the unaided forms of AAC, which would be sign language and gestures, as early as 6 to 8 months of age. And so a lot of us as parents are already starting to use that and have found that very beneficial. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about children begin looking at themselves in the mirror, recognizing themselves, recognizing familiar faces, family pets, relatives around 15 to 24 months. So when should we start having materials or AAC systems represent them? Early, from the onset, right? If our goal is that the AAC system is to be their voice, then it should represent them as closely as possible from the very beginning. And that's the same with any materials that you're using as well.
All right, so in my literature review, I found that multilingual families are often told 2 different myths. First of all, they're told that AAC should be used as a last resort. And then they're told that because they're language delayed, they should stick to one language so that they don't confuse them. And both of these are entirely not true. And we need to understand these so that we don't further the myths and we can get kids the devices that they need from an early age. The leading clinician in bilingualism in AAC is Dr. Gloria Soto. She's a professor at San Francisco State, and she has such invaluable information on this topic. She stated that there are no detrimental effects to those who use AAC, and that maintenance of the home language is imperative. Like, we have to do it. They need a good foundation of their L1, and this needs to be fostered with an output device that's available in their home language. So we build upon the L1 to target the L2. So we need a good foundation of it. She also encourages that we move away from specifically parent trainings and instead focus on more of a collaborative approach when working with multilingual families. The approach needs to be culturally accessible and family centered, getting all the family members involved and seeing what things they want to talk about or in which ways the device or low tech system would aid their communication. A way you can do this is like, again, involving the families, involving the siblings if they're available. Sometimes those siblings can help the parents program devices. So having it be a collaborative approach. Another important point to consider that I found in the research was that Latino families, once they were introduced to sign or unaided methods, they preferred that over over high tech. So they stated it was like a method of their own. They're like, only I understand my kid, like I know what he's wanting to say. So just something to remember. I mean, if you are in the EI settings and you're the first to introduce AAC, consider introducing high tech AAC as well. That way, later on in life, when later perhaps they would benefit from like an iPad, for example, they don't think it's like an either or thing. As we learned before, you're able to use both. So just something to keep in mind. And the earlier, the better with high tech bilingual AAC. At one of my AAC sites, I overheard a therapist one time speak about a patient's lack of using a device. She said, I know the student is not using it because the device comes to clinic and it's not charged. And I remember thinking, well, is the device like in their language? Because the student was of a different background than the therapist. And it's just very clear how we need to like understand these things, because you can't expect a student to use a device in a language that they don't speak at home, right? They're not going to use it at home if the language that their device is in is not in their home language. And then more importantly, if it is in their heritage language, who is doing the modeling of the heritage language AAC device? The parents who perhaps haven't been trained in it, or the SLPs who are monolingual and might be modeling incorrectly. And all of this is important because when we think of AAC system that is programmed in their home language, we must consider that we can't just like translate the vocabulary from English into a different language. Modeling language is going to be different because syntax is different. For example, if you're modeling on a Spanish core board, you might be modeling a noun and then an adjective like the word perro, café, versus in English, it would be like brown dog. And then this is similar to like if a student is using the incorrect syntax, it might be because of a language transfer, but not of a language indicative of his language disorder. So this is why it's important to not just simply translate English vocabulary into a Spanish page set. And then similarly, core word lists, and this is something that Dr. Gloria Soto talks a lot about. You shouldn't translate core word lists because core word lists usually have their own norms. And if the heritage language uses different norms, they would be different core words. Sometimes they interlap and some of them are related, but we should always just cross-reference and not just simply translate core word list.
Okay, so we also wanted just to talk a little bit about how you can even personalize and start to think about ways to individualize even with light text systems. So we just want to show some examples of some different ways that that's done. And this is personalizing in lots of different features that we're going to go into more specifics about in a little bit. But here we have just some different examples. Like, for example, we have a core board on the left that is, kind of more of a generic, it's from Project Core that we got it. But there's also options to now in many of the systems to change the skin tone and other options like that. We have at the bottom, you can see that, you can always just use photos. Remember that, picture graphic symbols doesn't just mean you have to use Boardmaker, that you have to use lesson pics. You can use photos, and a lot of times that can be the most, representative of something that may be in the home or, in that child's environment or that individual's environment, not just a child. There may be other types of physical needs, such as CVI or other types of vision needs where you need to individualize with different contrast backgrounds or different color schemes to think about. Using logos or different symbols that are in that environment. For example, you see that this is a symbol for library. It's a pretty universal symbol that this is where the library is. So making sure that these types of things are available. On the bottom, you can see that there's a lesson pick symbol with different skin tone and maybe different physical features that you may be able to add. And also thinking about that it's also, again, not just, you're not just getting your light text symbols from, a specific program or software, but some people really benefit, especially when you're first starting out, using some of those grocery ads or magazines where you can find a lot of the objects, those specific objects that the family is using. And that also empowers the family to feel like that they can also, make some of these picture symbols too. It's not just waiting for the SLP or waiting for the teacher to make these symbols. So just thinking about some of these things. So these are also some examples of things that we have seen either online or either, in our own workplace and practices. There's alphabet boards. A lot of people really like this placemat that you see here. That was from Puzzles Behavior Mama, but it allows for there to even be core language along, with during snack time or during lunchtime, especially in the school setting. This is really helpful. There can be customization of visual schedules and kind of picture schedules. And there's also options to customize even eye gaze boards or light tech eye gaze boards. And then our last slide on light tech are some examples of more of the light tech versions of higher tech systems like you see here. And many of y'all are probably familiar with these already. But again, there's some core boards that you can see here. And then even also like flipbook versions of touch chat, if you're familiar with that system. There's Pod here. We have Unidad, which is through PRC. And we also have LAMP. And there are also just different visual display options that you can see here. So again, this was a very quick review, but we're just showing that there are different options that you can kind of individualize and make it unique to the user, just starting even with the light tech. And so we also wanted to share that there are, options for making some of these systems. Again, you don't have to. There are plenty of ways to make, picture symbols and to make picture graphic symbols without using these, but these options are available and they do, a lot of them have different customization options that we listed here. And we just thought that this was a great way to present it to you. We have Lesson Picks, Symbol Sticks Prime, Smarty Symbols, and Board Maker. And we kind of listed just some of the key things that each of those systems have. And we really wanted to highlight the fact that many of them do allow you to make special requests for specific symbols that you may need. So maybe if you need something that, a physical feature that is particular to that, person using it, or maybe you need an item that you can't find when you're looking, you can usually either email them or, use a chat feature to request different types of symbols that can also really help with personalization too.
All right, so in regards to AAC resources, I was looking at the Slack chat, and I agree that there is not a lot of core words like lists in Spanish, for example. I did write in the chat that Dr. Soto is working on a wonderful protocol that includes norm-based Spanish language core words, and you can email her and she will send it to you. It's an amazing protocol. I think it's like the first of its kind. It's modeled after the Quad profile, and so I included it in the Slack chat. You can email her for it. But again, there's not a ton of Spanish stuff out there. A lot of it is created on Teachers Pay Teachers by other SLPs. It takes more work, I feel like, to create these things. But I do think it's an area that needs to, it needs to happen, although it's like more work for us. But anyways, when I look for things for my Spanish speaking clients, for example, I always go, I type in AAC in Spanish. So the translation is CAA. And I type in words like tablero de comunicación, which is like a communication board. So I type these things in Spanish into like Google or Teachers Pay Teachers, and I have found some great and free low cost options. Some of the families that I work with are usually from disadvantaged backgrounds, so they don't have access to an iPad. Sometimes they have a Droid tablet, if even. So those are, I type in either AAC or CAA into like the Droid Play Store or whatever it's called. So those are some things to consider. And also, it's important to remember that sometimes when we give a speech generating device to a student, it might be the most expensive thing in their household. So these are all important things to consider. But this is a way that I try to find low cost options for some of my families. And then when reading back to the definition from the committee for the communication needs of persons with severe disabilities, one of our first slides, they mentioned that people have a right to have clear, meaningful, and linguistically appropriate communications. When we don't make adjustments and we don't personalize AAC, we are kind of dictating where the user can communicate, what language, what vocabulary they are limited to, and we may be completely erasing their language or their heritage by having it just stay in English. So therefore, our entire mission is to highlight the important workarounds that I know it's extra steps for us, but that we can do to diversify AAC, and also what some AAC companies are working on in regards to changing, personalizing AAC, and all of these things are very important. So changing the icon or skin color, changing languages or dialects, different voice synthesizers are important, vocabulary, and the ability to code switch. And our hope is that one day all of these extra steps will not be needed, and we can just pick up a device and it'll come preset with a lot of these things. But we're going to highlight some ways in which we can diversify AAC. So research has shown that AAC icons are interpreted differently across cultures. Therefore, it is important that the icons that are chosen represent what the user thinks they represent. And this can be achieved by personalizing the device or light take system along with the family, along with the student. And when we involve families in the personalization of their device, this helps them retain and remember the location of the icon, for example, and it also helps add it to the receptive vocabulary if it wasn't already there. So always keep in mind the type of vocabulary to program, as perhaps the native language page might focus on religions, social communication, and home-based routines. And maybe the English page might have more of an academic routine or academic vocabularies. And then it's also important to not make assumptions that the language, reads from left to right, or that families may be keen to reading at all. We must remove our own personal biases when working with different cultures than our own.
So we're going to talk today about now the workarounds and what you can do within high-tech systems in order to add some and show that representation within the AAC system. I want to kind of start by talking about, we did a panel discussion with some of the top AAC companies earlier this year, back in January. And I want to give a shout out because they have made these changes so quickly in such a short amount of time. And they also spoke about what goes into it financially, technologically, collaboratively. So they want these changes and they want these upgrades within their systems as much as we want them. And so I want to just point that out because I know that we can be impatient in what we desire and what we know that we need for our clients, but also just acknowledging that it's not a quick process for some of these. Skin tone, on the other hand, many companies made this change rather quickly. You can see here Symbol Sticks offers, and we'll show you a workaround for that, but Symbol Sticks offers currently 5 different skin tones. Mayor Johnson offers the same. Smarty Symbols offers, I believe, 3 different skin tones. And the Unidad also offers different skin tones. We have some that are in the process still, as Christina pointed out earlier. But several of the AAC systems currently do offer, the robust systems do offer some sort of a workaround, either for all of the symbols at once or a single symbol. So let's take a look at one of the workarounds that you can find. We have a YouTube channel. It's called Diverse AAC, and that's where you'll find our workarounds. So this is just one example using Proloquo to Go, which is through Assistiveware. how to change their symbols, the skin tone on those symbols. Everybody, welcome back to our channel, Diverse AAC. Today, we're going to teach you how to change the skin tone using your Proloquo to Go communication application. It's fairly simple.
Sorry.
You just start by selecting the settings wheel. Then you're going to go to appearance, scroll all the way to the bottom. Under skin tone, you're going to select the skin tone, and you'll notice that it automatically populates your skin tones of all of your icons on the screen. Exit out of that.
Okay.
And then you are ready.
Like it. I like it.
Follow us for more information on how to diversify your AAC.
Sorry, it was a little choppy. Okay. All right, want to make sure my sound's back on. Okay, yes. So physical features. So this is an area where unfortunately we don't have a lot of workaround. We actually don't have any full videos on that, but we still think this is an important area of personalization for sure. But we still wanted to show you some of the things that are offered right now for different types of symbols and different systems. And so for symbol sticks, like there are options if you wanted to add like a wheelchair or some other types of adaptive equipment. As you can see down below, Mayor Johnson offers different types of power wheelchairs, and there's also different individuals wearing a head covering, open symbols. Also offers someone wearing glasses and someone who is wearing hijab. And then Smarty Symbols also has some. So though a lot of times though, I will say you do need to, like, it's not just gonna, ideally we would like it so that you can just go into the system and toggle on an option that says like glasses or wheelchair or different types of other physical features of somebody. But right now, a lot of times you do need to go into the system and type something like wheelchair and then add it as the symbol for eye and hope that it represents the user in terms of their skin tone and other types of things, or even their gender identification. But right now that's pretty much what we have found that you can do to get some of those things in there, which we do think are very important to represent somebody. But right now there are not a lot of workarounds, but we do hope, and we've talked to some different companies about this, and they said that they would also like to do this too, because ideally like one day it could be almost be like a Bitmoji or that kind of thing where you can choose the different features and then just have it added to the eye symbol or anything that's representing that person, like even in the actions. But right now there's slight workaround, but it's not all the way where we would like it to be yet.
All right, so here we have listed some of the languages that are available on the most commonly used AAC apps. Keep in mind that a lot of these are direct translation, meaning that they took the English vocabulary and then just translated to Spanish, for example. It's not the best in terms of code switching. However, it is the only option we have right now. And then also keep in mind that there are different dialects of, for example, Spanish that are not really included. So you could have like Puerto Rican Spanish or Dominican Spanish or Mexican. However, if a high-tech a high-tech app doesn't meet all of the user's needs, you can always, again, consider providing an additional light-tech board. And also, I think that they should have exposure to 2 languages, even if a student is quote unquote English dominant. Even if they have a little exposure to a second language, they absolutely need access to that vocabulary. I think the second page as well lists a few other apps with the different languages. And so code switching. So frankly, the apps that we have available do an okay job at code switching, but it's not ideal. Bilingual brains are not 2 monolinguals in one. So we don't have like an English brain and then a Spanish brain. They kind of like coincide and work upon each other. And our app vocabularies are exactly that, right? So we have 1 English page, 1 Spanish page. And again, our bilingual our bilingual brains don't exactly work that way. However, again, it's the best that we have available to us right now. I do think these code switching abilities are getting better, like they used to be worse. So there are some apps where code switching is already programmed and you can easily just like toggle between. And then there are some apps where you have to create an actual button to toggle between the two different languages. And so here we created a workaround, again, found on our YouTube channel, on how to create a toggle button for TouchTap word power, and how to switch between two languages.
If you have a user who needs access to 2 different languages, you can make 2 separate profiles. So this is different from creating 2 different vocabulary sets. But once you've created a vocabulary, you're happy with all of the changes and the settings that you've made, what you could do is save it as a profile. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. Go to Menu, Settings, and then up here at the top, it's Save Profile. I'm going to choose the test profile 60 basic, or you can create a new name by typing into here. But I'm just going to use this one that I've already made and save it again. It's asking me if I want to overwrite it. I will choose yes and done. And so now this profile is saved with all the voice settings and all the other changes that I've made. And I also had a Spanish set that I've already created and saved that profile as well. So as you can see down here at the bottom right, I have made a button that says Espanol, and I just chose a symbol that showed 2 different, voice bubbles. You can choose any symbol, make it any color, anything you'd like to call it. But I'm going to go up here to Menu, Edit Page. To go into edit mode, I'm going to select this button I've made, edit this button. I'm going to go down here to the button Actions, and what I'm going to do is add. I'm going to scroll to select profile here, and I'm going to choose the Spanish one because I now want this button to take me to Spanish. I could have, the button, I could add an action that makes it so it says Espanol allowed, but it's really, up to your preference. I'm going to choose Save and Done. So now when I select it, it goes into the Spanish language set. And as you can see, I've already made one here that goes back to English in the bottom right as well. So if I select that, it goes back to my English set. And again, it's really up to you. If you wanted to say English or Spanish, English or Espanol allowed, you can always do that. It's really up to you.
Okay, hopefully it doesn't keep talking. All right, so we also want to talk about some of the options for voice and dialect and how you can personalize that. So currently, a lot of the systems, a lot of the AAC systems use a cappella. I'm sure many of you all are familiar with that, but there's several different voices that have different languages that have the accents of different languages that are available, and they continue to develop more, which we'll talk about also a little bit later in the presentation. But we also just wanted to note that, because a lot of the systems all use it, it's going to be kind of a universal thing of that. As things are added for a cappella, that's going to change for a lot of the top AAC apps that we're using. There's also Voice Keeper, which is an option available through PRC Saltillo. And that's where an individual can record their voice in the event that maybe their voice is going to change, maybe due to a progressive illness or progressive kind of condition. So maybe they want to record their voice as it is now, and then use it later at a time when maybe they're not able to use their voice, or they can also have somebody else that they have chosen to kind of represent them, or they feel like that their voice, that they like the sound of that voice, they can record that to be used on their AAC system. And then there's also Vocal ID, which is available through PRC and Tobii Dynavox, I believe. And that one is more of like a crowdsourced way of getting different voices. So it takes a bunch of like voice banking of different people that have recorded voices, and it allows the user to kind of choose a voice based on a unique voice based on a lot of the different options and kind of combining them. So it's pretty cool. And then finally, we're also going to show you a workaround for pronunciations, because that's always a way you can individualize, especially even if it's just one word in the system rather than, changing the entire system to be pronounced with a certain dialect. So we have an example here for LAMP Words for Life and how to change the pronunciation of something important such as a name. So we'll show that. Let me just get rid of these suggestions down here.
Sometimes you may need to change the pronunciation of a word to make it more personal. For example, if I'm working with an individual named Matias, for example, on this personal page in Lampboards for Life, I can go here.
My name is Marshes.
And as you can see, it does not pronounce Matthias in the correct way. So in order to change that, I can go to Menu up here on the top right, go to the first one here that says Edit Pronunciations. And now I'm going to add it to one of the ones on the list. So I'm going to choose the plus sign and first type the word that I want to be pronounced differently. So I'm going to type Matthias. And now I have to figure out phonetically how it should be said. And you can test it out by pressing Pronouns. So let me try one example. Matthias. So it's not exactly right. It's closer, but not exactly there. Let me take out one of the T's and see if that makes a difference.
Matthias.
That's pretty accurate. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And so I could keep playing around with it, but I'm going to go ahead and choose Save and then Done. And now
My name is Matthias.
It's going to pronounce it in a more correct way without having to change the spelling in the message bar.
Okay, so let's talk about vocabulary features. We talked about in the very beginning that the purpose of the AAC system is to be able to provide the user the ability to say what they want. And a robust vocabulary system is key, but also having vocabulary that is specific to their needs, which could include gender inclusive pronouns, advocacy words and phrases, mature vocabulary, cultural vocabulary. Those are all very important for them to be able to communicate in their community about what they want to communicate when they want to communicate. And there's going to be several examples of these. Currently, SNAP Core First has a plethora and a really great example of boards within their system that already are geared towards these topics. So they have a great jumping off board for advocacy, also some intimacy and dating boards, and then some cultural ones as well. So check those out on SNAP Core First. And if nothing else, it will give you an idea of where to start and some phrases to use if your user doesn't have SNAP Core First, so that you can create those in your own, in their system. And then when we talk about leveled vocabulary and that mature vocabulary, AAC users, we're big proponents of AAC users should be able to use the vocabulary that all of their peers are using. So they should have access to that. So in the Grid 3 by Smartbox or the Grid by Smartbox, you can, as you set up the profile, you can choose the vocabulary system, whether it's for a child or for a teen or above, and that will automatically level the vocabulary and give them options. And you can also toggle between that. You can enable that as they mature or as the parents want to allow for that. So that's a great feature that we would love to see more systems be able to have the ability to provide for their users. And then this will be one of the workarounds that will show you about the use of how to add inclusive pronouns to Proloquo is one system that you can add that. So this is one of the workarounds on our YouTube channel on how to do that. So check it out.
To our YouTube channel here at Diverse AAC. Today, we're going to learn how to add gender inclusive pronouns using the Proloquo to Go communication application. So to get started, we're going to open the folder. I'm going to go into my people where we're going to add the button. So I'm going to go down to my pencil to edit. I'm going to hit the plus sign because I want to add a button. Then I'm going to type my gender inclusive pronoun and simply hit done. And you'll see that it's going to color code it automatically for us in orange because it's pronoun. You can also add another button, type in the word they, and it automatically comes up with that as your option. But if you scroll down, you'll see that you can hit the singular they as an option and then press done. And again, it's going to automatically color code it for you. So that's how you add, and you can find and locate pronouns, additional pronouns. For more videos similar to this, check out our YouTube channel. To learn how to add gender inclusive pronouns using the Prola quote.
Sorry about that. There we go. So there are also on the way, there is an African American English voice available. That's pretty much, I think it's almost done. And they're also working on an African American male voice that's going to be available in all of these systems, everyone who uses acapella basically. And it's currently the Tamara voice is being developed, and they did a lot of like kind of surveying people to see, you know, how they think it sounded and how it was pronouncing different words. And it was, I listened to it, I took the survey, and I think it's really good. So hopefully they'll keep doing that for other dialects and other cultures as well, and they'll keep adding them because it is very important. And so in the future, there are many things that obviously we do need to address, but we do hope in the future there are more African American English male and then child voices in even more systems besides the ones that just use a cappella. We hope that we're able to add physical features like hair, eye color, glasses, cultural features and cultural attire, dialect variations, culturally relevant vocabulary sets, such as, related to religion or other types of, identity groups, and then a more fully bilingual page sets and not just simply translated.
So we are active on Instagram, and we are frequently updating and highlighting device companies updates as they come to us. It's a really cool relationship now where the companies are reaching out to us directly to talk about their diverse efforts. So we invite you to follow us on there and also on YouTube to watch the rest of our workarounds. We have them for the most commonly used apps, and we are constantly adding more videos. You can email us if you have any questions. We respond pretty promptly. And we'd also love to hear from you guys about what you guys are doing, or if you'd like to see a workaround for something. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, AAC in the Cloud, for having us. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the presentation. We will be taking a few questions now, I believe.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, in the Slack chat, if you have a question that you'd like to ask of this group, go ahead and enter those, and we'll make sure that they can hear those, and we'll try and get you an answer to some of those. So if you have a specific question that you'd like to ask, just add it to the Slack chat in track 1, and we'll try to get you some more information about this presentation. We appreciate your insights, ladies, about diverse AAC and how to be a little more inclusive and a little more, have some options that may better fit different AAC users for whatever need or whatever piece of life they're in. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And it looks like we have a few people that are typing, so we'll give them just a second to see if we have some questions that come through. But we appreciate your experience and your thoughts on this. Maybe you can, real quick, while people are thinking, maybe you can tell us what brought you three kind of together. How did this kind of grow into something that you've become part of as you've moved forward?
It just kind of started as a work group. There was a chat last spring through kind of hosted or brought up in one of, I think, the Facebook groups, maybe even through Dr. Carl Zingari, and she kind of started us talking about this, and then Alma reached out to the two of us about doing a presentation at ATIA, and then from there we've just kind of kept in touch, and I don't think we anticipated to talk almost every day ever since then, but we have. But we've, definitely we're all passionate about it, so I think that really helps. But we've actually never met in person, any of us, even though they're both in California and I'm on the East Coast in DC, Maryland area, but we see plenty of each other on Zoom, so it works out.
A beautiful use of the technology that's available. That's great.
Yes.
We do have one question from Summer. She says this might be a little bit of an overlarge question, but she says she's really curious about which AAC systems are better for Spanish grammar for emerging communicators. She mentions that there's one where if you hit the button for quiero, rather than, it says, she'd like it to say quiero, but it's querer is the main verb. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
which is the best system for Spanish? Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, personally, I really like Lambert's for Life because it has like the preterite verb form. So like el tiene, tenemos, like right there. So you're able to like, when you model language, you can like differentiate. But it also depends a lot on like what is available to the user. Like, for example, I know Cough Drop is available on Droid tablets. And again, like a lot of my students use Droid. So if that's something like, if I want them to start AAC tomorrow, like I can get that for them. So it kind of depends on the user. And then I agree that it's really weird how you have to like do double hits to get to like the word that you want to. And I know that, what is the name of the app? The Unidad, which is only on speech generating devices. That one is actually like pretty research based. I know Dr. Gloria Soto was like involved in the making of that. So I've heard that that's a good app for like emerging communicators. I hope that answered your question. Sorry.
Excellent. Along the same lines, someone has asked if you have any AAC flyers or resources that you like best for parents that are working with students in Spanish.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
You bet. Sorry. Someone is wondering if you have a specific resource or maybe a website or a flyer that you appreciate to help parents who are working in Spanish to maybe get started or have some ideas on AAC.
Yeah, that is like one of my long-term goals like of this is to create more resources for parents because there's like none out there. Like even the manuals are not in Spanish. And more importantly, I think the creation of the YouTube channel was also to create videos for the parents because I do think that they need visuals, they need like an actual training versus like giving them something else to read because a lot of our parents don't have the time, to be honest. So yeah, that is a long-term goal. But currently I don't know if like any like AAC, like specific flyers about AAC, but we're working on them.
Good, thanks. I'm sure there are a lot of families who appreciate that, and we had a Spanish language session yesterday that Claudia did for us, and there seemed like there was a lot of, I wish I spoke Spanish, I don't, but it seemed to be a really good session, and hopefully that was at least a little bit of a way to be able to get some information out there and maybe support families a little bit. If anybody else has another, go ahead, sorry. Yes.
I was gonna say really quickly, there are a ton of Latin American SLPs that work, like for example, in Chile that have created a lot of Spanish AAC resources. And I think in our link tree on Diverse AAC, we have their names. If not, I can add them to the chat, but there are a lot of Spanish AAC therapists in Latin America that have they post a lot of content in Spanish. So those would be good to follow and let parents know about that.
And I do know the aided language simulation video that's like widely shared with a lot of people is also available in Spanish too. So it can be a great resource to just talk about, how, the importance of modeling and using the system as much as possible.
Excellent. Okay, well, ladies, we will let you go. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights. We appreciate all of you and the perspective that you share, that you help us kind of broaden our views and maybe help those that are part of these different pieces that everybody can be included and be a part and be accepted and wanted and feel part of. So thank you very much. We appreciate all who have attended this session of AAC in the Cloud, and we hope that you'll move into the next session, or for those who are watching the recording, feel free to check another link and get some additional AAC insights and information. Again, to Christina and Jill and Alma, thank you very much for your time. And thanks to everyone who is here. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.